Hey, what's up, YouTube world? It is your girl here, the Venusian Bull, and I am back with another video. So what we're going to be doing in this series of videos is we're going to be discussing the planets in the 8th house. Yes, I know a lot of people have been waiting for this house. Anything that has to do with the 8th house, Scorpio, Plutonian things, people are always curious. People are always interested. They always want to see, the mystique of this energy. So we're going to be discussing planets in the 8th house, and I'm going to be doing this a little bit differently, as I'm going to have an introductory video to get through with all of like the kind of housekeeping details and everything that the 8th house contains, because I'm going to go very much into depth, pun intended, with the 8th house as it pertains to the planets and things like that. And I didn't want to have to say the same things over and over at the beginning of the video like I usually do, because it's a lot of information and a lot of knowledge that I'm going to be dropping on y'all. So yeah, there will be a description in the comment box of the actual timestamp of when I get to that planet in as it pertains to the 8th house. So don't worry, if you've seen 3 of these, you can skip through them if need be and go just straight to, sun in the 8th, Mars in the 8th, moon in the 8th, whatever. Okay. All right. So let's discuss the 8th house a little bit. Okay. So I also want to kind of put a trigger warning on these videos, because the 8th house deals with a lot of kind of taboo topics, the things that we don't really, want to discuss, the things that are buried beneath the surface and things like that, such as sex, such as death, anything that's taboo, and that could be deemed taboo or beneath the surface. That could even mean astrology or tarot or numerology or any type of occult like studies and mediumship, voodoo, hoodoo, all of that shit. You know what I'm saying? Especially when it comes to kind of like worshiping like ancestors and the dead and things like that. The 8th house has to deal with death, so we may be talking about demons and spirits and all of that type of stuff. So again, trigger warning. And this is the trauma house. A lot of the times I always say that Scorpio is the trauma queen, while Leo is the drama queen. So 8th house energy, there's always going to be some type of trauma that needs to be kind of overcome, but you're not going to escape drama. You're not going to escape trauma having 8th house energy. It's kind of inevitable that you will experience certain things. So I went through the basics: sex, death, anything that has to deal with trauma, transformation, regeneration. This is a very transformative placement. You're always changing, always transforming, and it's usually in major ways. This also has to deal with other people's money, as the 2nd house deals with earned income and money that you earn. The 8th house deals with other people's money. So this isn't necessarily money that you work for. This is money that you get from an inheritance, or like spousal support, or like child support, or like a life insurance policy, or something along those lines. And the 8th house also represents debt that you owe. So not only other people's money, but money that you owe to other people. So creditors, like bankruptcy, all of that stuff that we hate, really, right? I also like to think of the 8th house. The 8th house is kind of about turning trash into treasure. It's very much a purging thing. It's about, getting rid of garbage, and things like that, because Scorpio, which rules the 8th house, actually represents, for lack of a better word, excrement. You know what I'm saying? It represents, the waste out of your body. So it could be like literal waste or like figurative waste that you're kind of doing away with. And that kind of goes along with the transformative aspect of the 8th house. And as a reminder to keep in mind that you need to take account the sign that's on the 8th house cusp, as well as the aspects that the planet is making with any other planets in your chart, because this may modify the energy that you are experiencing in the 8th house. So make sure that you take heed of that. Sometimes I state this periodically in other videos, but I want to get this in the first video, the intro video, so that everybody knows that the characteristics that I state for the planet, that I'm speaking about may vary based off of other variables in your chart. So I want to make that very clear, especially when it comes to, the eighth house, because it's so transformative and it's so, intense, it's so in depth that it can mean so many different things. And speaking of intensity and depth, it has to deal with that. It has to deal with intimate bonds, close bonds. It's the next step up from the seventh house, which is like more like commitment and marriage. And the eighth house is that intimate bond that it's not a you and I, it's a we thing when it gets to the eighth house. So it's that as well. And it's, deep, it's about deep connections, and it's about researching, it's about investigating to get down to the bottom and the depths and, the oceans of things. This is a water house. So you have to remember this is an emotional house. People forget that Scorpio is a water sign sometimes, I think, and emotional, because their exterior can be so, you know what I'm saying? It could be very resting bitch face, but remember that this energy needs to feel deeply, like within the depths of their soul. They need to feel right down into their gut. So they need to feel deeply. This house may be prone to experiencing a lot of pain as well, pain and trauma. And usually, in a lot of instances, that's something that people who have this energy, they actually like. So yeah, without any further ado, I'm going to get into the planets in the eighth house. So stay tuned. See ya. All right, so in this video, we are going to be discussing Mercury in the eighth house. And just so we can address the elephant in the room quickly, you see I got a new new year, new hair, new cut, who this, all of that. I'm giving you very much Aaliyah, but short. So that's what I'm giving. All right, let's move on to the content of this video. Mercury in the eighth house, okay? So just to remind everybody, Mercury represents communications of all kinds, siblings, cousins, your neighbors. It represents the media, also represents, writing and, being witty, humorous, and all of those types of things, okay? So with Mercury in the eighth house, and as a reminder, Mercury in the eighth house is similar to having Mercury in Scorpio or having Gemini or Virgo on the eighth house cusp, because remember, both of those rule Mercury. I'm sorry, Mercury rules both of those signs. All right, so let's get into the nitty gritty for real. Okay, so I feel as though Mercury in the eighth house is like the ultimate investigator, the ultimate researcher. They can find out anything about anybody, about any time. They just know how to research and get to the bottom of things, whether it be for, really, like serious topics. Like this could make a really great like crime scene investigator and like detective and stuff like that, really solving like really, really serious crimes and things like that. And then it could also be good just for, when you in a relationship and you think your significant other is doing a little something, you just like, okay, I'm gonna figure out the password to this. I'm gonna figure out the password to this device, and I'm gonna get all of the information. I'm gonna figure out the password to your socials and all of that. This is that person, Mercury in the eighth house. So, be careful, because this is the thing. Like if you have Mercury in the eighth house, like you're dating somebody with Mercury in the eighth house, trust me, they already know. They already know. You know what I'm saying? Mercury has to deal with getting information. So that means that they've already checked you out. They already know your dirt. They already know the slimiest, the craziest, the most outlandish things that you've done. And they're choosing to still be with you. So that means that it wasn't that bad. Again, with Mercury in the eighth house, this type of person, eighth house energy is able to endure a lot before they're like, hold up, that's too much for me. You know what I'm saying? Because eighth house is all about, yes, give me more, give me intensity, give me the too much, give me the trauma, give me the hole that I have to fix. You know what I'm saying? So, and Mercury is no exception because it's that ultimate researcher, ultimate investigator, and everything like that. This is also a really good placement. Like, remember, Mercury has to deal with communication. So, this is like communicating about sex. You know what I'm saying? So, this is like maybe being a sexologist or maybe being a sex therapist. You know what I'm saying? Or having a podcast where you talk about sex. Now, I don't know these girls' charts specifically, but there is a podcast that I listen to periodically, not all the time, but it's called Horrible Decisions. And it's basically a podcast about sex. And it would be very interesting to know their charts. They did actually do an episode on astrology. I know I'm giving a little footnote here, so I may have to go back and find that to see if what I hear, and I have to do comprehensive thinking because they didn't break it down everything, constitutes them having Mercury in the 8th house, or even like Mercury in Scorpio. I know one of the girls is a Libra, so it's a very strong chance that she has Mercury in Scorpio. It's like very strong because Scorpio is the next sign from Libra. So that's also another little tidbit. But anyway, yes, so you could be wanting to communicate about sex, writing erotica, writing sexually explicit lyrics, you know what I'm saying? Writing about sex. Maybe you're into the adult film industry and you're a writer, and some of those films, they be having scripts. I don't be knowing why, nobody wants to read the scripts, but maybe you're like in like mainstream movies that are like rated R, those really high intensity sex scenes, you may write those. You know what I'm saying? It's like Mercury in the 8th house makes it really easy to discuss anything that's considered taboo or beneath the surface. And for some reason, still in the year of our Lord 2021, people still think that sex is considered taboo, but also different types of sex. You like to talk about, your kinks and the things that you like and all of that type of stuff. You like to communicate. You're a talker during sex. So, depending on what you like, you may or may not like that. But this is definitely somebody who's going to be talking and communicating during sex, which I think is a really good thing. And just up until that point is going to want to talk about sex. This is like talking foreplay. You know what I'm saying? This is like foreplay all the time via talking, via texting, via, like FaceTiming, any type of communication that's not actually the act of sex. It's like verbal foreplay. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, definitely keep that in mind. Also, because, Mercury being in the 8th house, it doesn't have to just deal with sex. It also deals with death and transformation. So you could kind of always be talking about deep, penetrating, like transformational changes that you're making. And it could also be in the ways that you are, communicating with people and, with the public and things like that. So, you can't forget that the 8th house is very transformative, even when it comes to types of communication. Also, as it pertains to death, you may not have as many issues talking about death. Death is not something that's like scary to you. It's like an end that you're going to meet. So it's like you don't really mind discussing it. You definitely don't mind discussing different ways that people die. I think this is a really interesting position for like a psychiatrist. I know this isn't particularly about death, but I was just watching the movie Goth because I always be having my movie, references and stuff like that. But it just always works, movie and TV references. But Mercury in the 8th could definitely be a psychiatrist, prescribed medicine, you know what I'm saying? And, a therapist, because they want to get down to the nitty gritty. And Mercury in the 8th house represents somebody who's not afraid to go there. That's not afraid to talk about traumatic events like death, like sexual assault, rape, deep, intense transformation, and things like that. Like they're just not afraid to go there in their topic of conversation. Definitely not here for small talk, though. Not here for small talk. If you come in at a Mercury in the 8th house person with small talk, they're going to be like, I don't know to do with this because I'm not able to reach into your soul and and get to know things and understand things and your what your pet's name may be without you even telling me. Like, I need to be able to understand and communicate with your soul. So this surface level, like chit chat and small talk thing is not really the business for Mercury in the 10th house. I'm sorry, Mercury in the 8th house. Ooh, I'm skipping ahead. We ain't there yet, y'all. So yeah, this person loves to talk, but only about things that they are passionate about, only about things that require like in-depth, like critical thinking and real intelligence. Like, these motherfuckers, like, they're very smart, you know what I'm saying, because they always know how to find a way out of no way, you know what I'm saying. Like, this is an energy that is very, very resourceful, and they know how to find out information, and they know how to get money, and this deals with other people's money, so they know how to get to what they want. Sometimes that can be in very manipulative ways, especially with Mercury being present. 8th house is already manipulative, so then when you add Mercury there, and the wittiness and the conning that Mercury can represent in terms of communicating with people, yeah, this could be a very manipulative, conniving type of placement to be able to get what they want. You know what I'm saying? So just know Mercury, like kind of dark-sided Mercury in the 8th house, is really all for self. That dark side energy is really all for self. All of the information that they're attaining is for their own self-interest. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of on the dark side. On the light side of Mercury in the 8th house, they're obtaining this information, particularly kind of like dark, traumatic, even like taboo type of information. And that can also include, like I said before, occult sciences and astrology and tarot and mediumship and stuff like that. And they're gathering this information to be able to heal, to be able to help. Because the thing about it is that communicating these kind of, dark experiences and these dark topics is their strength. You know what I'm saying? This is a strength. You know what I'm saying? You can use it in manipulative ways, but you can use it also in extremely healing and transformative ways. Okay. On a kind of a dark note or somber note, Mercury does deal with siblings, and it deals with cousins and aunts and uncles and things like that. So because the 8th house does represent death, this is a placement where you can experience the death of one of those family members, siblings, aunts and uncles, cousins. Also, Mercury represents twins, because it rules Gemini. So you could have been the twin that was born, and your twin could have passed away in the womb. So this is also a placement that can kind of produce something like that as well. So yeah, I would just be like really mindful, like when you in the hood, like when you're like in your neighborhood. I always say like Gemini is like the sign of the hood, like the neighborhood and stuff like that. And Mercury rules Gemini. So be very cognizant of the people that you're hanging around, who you're communicating with, and also who, your siblings and your cousins and stuff like that. If you're close to them, if you have those close-knit bonds, are communicating with them, hopefully they're not getting mixed up into some crazy shit that may potentially get them killed or, locked up and things like that, because the 8th house does represent criminality. Also know that Mercury in the 8th house, they can have a very slick mouth. It's not the same as like Mercury in maybe like a fire sign or a fire house per se. These words can really, really cut. You know how the saying, they say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words would never hurt me? Mercury in the 8th house, Mercury in Scorpio says, shit, the fuck, words can hurt you, and I'm about to hurt you right now with this shit, okay? So, like, Mercury in the 8th house, like if they're mad at you or they feel betrayed or they feel lied to and stuff like that, and they feel like they were able to be vulnerable with you and you didn't reciprocate, and you just showed your ass, like, they're going to be no holds bar when it comes to chomping you down to size verbally. Like, they will say all of the things and all of the traumatic things that have happened in your life, the things that you told them about, and also things you didn't know that they know. Because remember, Mercury in the eighth house always knows, and they will say the most gut-wrenching things that will really, really hurt you. Like these are words that can really be like, wow, like I legit thought you loved me. I thought we were in this together, but like you just told me I'm fucking nothing, basically. You know what I'm saying? Like Mercury in the eighth house has the propensity to be able to do that, to come on that strong to the point where just their words can end a relationship or end a bond. Now, they don't necessarily want to take it there. They're usually provoked in some way. Possibly, maybe it could be legitimately them being provoked, but sometimes it may just be something small and they was just trying to get rid of you and they just want to show how mean and nasty they can be with their tongue. Some Mercury in the eighth house people want to do that. They just want to show you how mean and nasty they can be with their tongue. And that's not cool. That's very dark-sided. That's very manipulative. So, if you have that type of energy, fall back off of that. Fall back off of that. You know what I'm saying? But you have it in you. Just know, if you have Mercury in the eighth house, maybe you're the sweetest person in the world, but you got Mercury in the eighth house, you have that energy in you if someone pisses you off that much. So just know, when you let that energy out, that could be like the end of whatever relationship you have with this person. So if you're prepared to end it and you're okay with that and you accept that, then I guess go to town if you feel like it's worth it. But, at the end of the day, I don't know if it's worth it to say all of the most nasty, negative, traumatic things. Like they could be bringing up when you told them that you was molested when you was 6 years old and stuff, like just some crazy shit like that. And be like, you deserved it and you asked for it when you was 6. And that could just really trigger you and ultimately probably make you want to fight this Mercury in the eighth house person. And, then they're gonna, go for blows and stuff. So, you don't want to have that energy. I was able to turn Mercury in the eighth house really, really dark, even darker than the moon. That's really interesting. But yeah, the tongue can be very lethal with this placement. So just be careful if you have this placement and you know someone with this placement, be very cognizant of it and be very cognizant of what they know about you and what you think they might know about you. Because trust me, they probably know it all. They know it all. Oh, yes, they have gathered that information. And basically, as long as you never do anything to really, betray them or, upset them or anything like that, they'll take it to the grave. This is a mercurial placement that is not about gossip. You know what I'm saying? They're not about gossip and, sharing their business all over the place and stuff like that, like a true, like pure, like Mercury in Gemini or any Mercury in the air sign, for instance. But they will put that shit on you if they feel betrayed in some type of way. So just be cognizant of that. Yeah, I think I pretty much covered everything. Like I said before, I didn't really cover other people's money because Mercury does deal with contracts. So, and the eighth house has to deal with, collaborating with people. So you may be collaborating with people in the realm of communication, especially if you're like, maybe you are working in film and writing these erotic scenes, or you're a sexologist, or you have a sex podcast and stuff like that. So you're collaborating with people in order to earn money, or you're just like, you may have earned money from your siblings or an aunt or an uncle or something like that. Maybe an aunt or an uncle was your primary caregiver as opposed to, a mother and father and stuff like that. So maybe you may have inherited money from them after they may have passed or something like that, or maybe they just passed something down to you. Great placement for, this is the ultimate researcher, the ultimate investigator, like I said. Also a great placement for being, a psychiatrist, and things like that. And Yeah, so this is a very interesting placement. It can go in a lot of different directions. So definitely let me know if this resonated with you, if you happen to have this placement. And also, if there's anything that I missed, make sure to drop that in the comments section. And remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and tell a friend. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.